Okay, everyone, we're going to continue reading To Kill a Mockingbird. We will start on page, I think it's 185. Hold on, let me double check. Or 184. Okay, we're going to start on the bottom of page 183, the very last paragraph. You remember during the last time Mr. Gilmer was questioning Mayella in the courtroom, okay? And he's finished. So now it is Atticus's turn to ask any questions if he wants to. Oh, let's see. Let me let the students in. Okay, Farah Hisham, would you read, please? Farah? Oh, she's not here. Materials is not there, and I had my. You didn't find out anything. Chris, would you read, please?
Yes, ma'am. Miss, starting from.
Start from right here, Chris.
Okay. State will not produce the witness against counsel for the defense, murmured Judge Taylor primarily, at least not at this time. Actus got up cringy, but instead of walking to the witness stand.
Atticus got up, Chris.
Yes.
Atticus got up grinning.
Grinning. But instead of walking to the witness stand, he opened his coat and hooked his thumbs in his vest. Then he walked slowly across the room to the windows. He looked out, but didn't seem especially interested in what he saw. Then he turned and strolled back to the witness stand. From long years of experience, I could tell he was trying to come to a decision about something. Miss Mayla, he said, smiling, I won't try to scare you for a while. Not yet. Let's just acquainted. How old are you? Said I was 19. Said it to the judge yonder. Mayla jerked her head gracefully and the beach. You did, so you did, ma'am. You will have to bear with me, Miss Mayla. I am getting along and I can't remember as well I used to. I might ask you things you have already said before, but you will give me an answer. Won't you? Good. I could see nothing in Mayla experiences to justify Actus or symptoms. That he had secured her wholehearted cooperation. She was looking at him. Cooperation. She was looking at him furiously. Won't answer a word. You say, long as you keep on mocking me, she said. Ma'am, as Actus stared at me, long you keep on making fun of me. Judge Taylor said, Mr. Finch is not making fun of you. What's the matter with you? Mayla looked from under lowered eyelids at Actus, but she said to the judge, Long, he keeps on calling me, ma'am.
Chris, stop for 1 second. I want the class to know. I want you to notice the different dialect that these people talk with, okay? This is how Mayella talks. Long as you keep on making fun of me. She's saying here, as long as you keep on making fun of me, I'm not going to say a word. Now, when you get down to Judge Taylor says, Mr. Finch is not making fun of you. What's the matter with you? So can you see the different dialect that they use here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then Chris started to read this, and it says, long as he keeps on calling me ma'am and saying Miss Mayella, I don't have to take his sass. I ain't called upon to take it. You understand how he talks? She talks. You've seen people in movies talk like this, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Who just answered yes?
Me.
Who's me?
Farah Mah.
Me.
Farah Mala, I'm very happy that you
Vanessa.
are the only one out of 27 students that knew what I was just talking about. Thank you.
Miss Lynn, I am answering.
I don't hear anyone. I feel like I am alone on a deserted island. Okay, Chris, I'm very sorry. Go ahead.
Miss Lynn,
Yes,
I said yes too.
I couldn't hear you.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
But I was answering. Sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
Actress resumed a stroll to the windows and let the Judge Taylor handle this one. Judge Taylor was not the kind of figure that everybody evoked pity, but I didn't feel a pang for him as he tried to explain. That's just Mr. Finch's way, he told Mayella. We have done business in this court for years and years, and Mr. Finch is always courteous to everybody. He's not trying to mock you. He's trying to be polite. That's just his way. The judge leaned back. Actors, let's get on with this proceedings and let the record show that the witnesses have not been sassy. Her view to this country, I wondered if anybody had called her name Ma'am or Miss Mayella. In her life, probably not, as she took offense to routine courtesy, or on earth was her life like? I soon found out. You say you're 19, Actus resumed. How many sister and brother have you? He walked from the window back to the stand.
7.
She said. 7, she said. And I wonder if they were all like the specimen I had seen the first day I started to school. You the eldest? The oldest? Yes. How long has your mother been dead? Don't know. Long time. Did you ever go to school? Read and write good as Papa yonder. Mayel sounded like Mr. Jingles in a book I had been reading. How long did you go to school? 2 years, 3 years, don't know. Slowly but similarly, I began to see patterns of active questions. From the questions that Mr. Glimmer did not deem sufficiently, irrelevantly, or immaterially, to actors was quite building up before the jury a picture of Evil's home life. Feed the family, and there was a strong suspicion that Papa drank it up anyways. He sometimes went off the swamp for days and came homesick. The weather was slant cold enough to require a shoe, but when it was, you could make dandy ones from shivers of old tires. The family halted its buckets from a spring that ran out of one end of the dump. They kept the surrounding area clear of trash and was everybody for himself as far as keeping clean when if you wanted to wash your hand, your own water. The younger children had perpetual colds and suffered from chronic ground itch. There was a lady who came around sometimes and asked Mayela why didn't she stay in school. She wrote down the answer, with two members of the family reading and writing. There was no need for the rest of them to learn. Papa needed them at home. Miss Mayela said, act this.
Chris, stop right there. How many brothers and sisters does Mayela say that she has?
Two members?
Farah, Mala.
7.
Yes, she told you right here, 7. 7.
Oh, okay.
I mean 7.
I didn't understand.
Okay?
Okay.
You have to pay, not just you, I'm talking to the whole class, Chris. When people speak like this, guys, you have to pay even more close attention, okay? Right here, what Chris just read to us, is this telling us, Scout now realizes that Atticus, why is he doing all this? Why is he asking her all of these questions? Because he is trying to build the case and show the jury. Remember, the jury are the people that find you either guilty or innocent. So that you're very important in how you present the trial case to the jury. So he's trying to give the jury an excellent picture of what the Ewell's home life is. Well, you should already know that it was worse than terrible, okay? They barely took baths. They were dirty, stinky people, okay? They got their water. First of all, they made shoes out of strips of old rubber tires, okay? The family had to haul water in buckets from a spring that ran out at one end of the dump, okay? The trash, it was everybody, up to everybody if they cleaned it, if they didn't clean it, all right? The younger children, pay attention to this, the younger children had perpetual colds, which means they had colds all the time, and they suffered from chronic ground itch. Let me explain a little bit and tell you what chronic ground itch is. There are worms in dirt, okay? And when these kids don't wear shoes and they're not kept clean and they go outside and play in the dirt all day, these worms enter their bodies and it causes them to have worms, okay? Now, sometimes there was also a lady that came and asked Mayela, why didn't she stay in school? I'm sure it was a woman that the school had sent to their home. And she wrote down what Mayela told her. With 2 members of the family reading and writing, there was no need for the rest of them to learn because Papa needed them at home. Does everyone now have a clear picture of what this family is really, really like?
Yes.
Any questions?
Yes.
No,
No, thank you.
No.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Welcome.
Let's see. Mahi, would you read, please?
Sure.
Okay. Right here, bud. Right here.
Okay. Miss Mayela, said Atticus,
In spite of himself, a 19-year-old girl like you must have friends. Who are your friends? The witness frowned. Exposure. Friends? Yes. Do you know anyone near your age or older or younger? Boys and girls? Just ordinary friends? Maela's hostility, which had subsided to
Grudging.
grudging
Neutrality.
neutrality, flared again. You making fun of me again, Mr. Finch? Atticus let her question answer his. Do you love your father, Miss Mayella? Was his next. Love him? What you mean? I mean, if he good, is he good to you? Is he easy to get along with? He does tolerable, except when Mayella looked at her father, who was sitting with his chair tipped against the railing. He sat up straight and ready for her to answer. Except when nothing, said Mayella. I said he does tolerable. Mr. Eel leaned back again, except when he's drinking. Asked Atticus so gently that Mayella nodded. Does he ever go after you? What do you mean? When he's riled? Has he ever beaten you? Mayella looked down at the court reporter of the judge. Answer the question, Miss Mayella, said Judge Taylor. My paws never touched hair on my head in my life, she declared firmly. He never touched me. Attic's glasses had slipped a little, and he pushed them up his nose. Up on his nose. We've had a good visit, Miss Mayella, and now I guess we better get to the case. You say you asked Tom Robinson to make chop up. What was it? A chifforobe, an old dresser full of drawers on one side. Was Tom Robinson well known to you? What do you mean? I mean, did you know who he was, where he lived? None of it. I know who he was. He passed the house every day. He was this the first time you asked him to come inside the fence? Mayla jumped slightly at the question. Atticus was making his slow pilgrimage to the windows, as he had been doing. He would ask a question, then look out, waiting for an answer. He did not see involuntarily jump, but it seemed to me that he knew she had moved. He turned around and raised his eyebrows. Was he began again? Yes, it was. Did you ever ask him to come inside the fence before? He was prepared now. I did not. I certainly did not. One did not enough, said Atticus serenely. You never asked him to do odd jobs for you before? I might condescended Mayella. There rose several figures around. Can you remember any other occasions? No. All right. Now to what happened. You said Tom Robinson was behind you in the room when you turned around. That right? Yes. You said he got you around the neck, cussing and saying dirt. Is that right? It's right. Attic's memory had suddenly become accurate. You say he caught me and choked me and took advantage of me. Is that right? That's what I said. Do you remember him beating you about the face? The witness hesitated. You seem sure enough that he choked you. All the time you were fighting back. Remember? You kicked and hollered as loud as you could. Do you remember him beating you about the face? Marilla was silent. She seemed to be trying to get something clear to herself. I thought for a moment she was doing Mr. Hectates and my trick of pretending there was a person in front of us. She glanced at Mr. Gilmer. This is an easy question, Ismaila, so I'll try again. Do you remember him beating you about the face? Atticus' voice had lost its comfortableness. He was speaking in his arid, detached, professional voice. Do you remember him beating you about the face? No, I don't recollect if he hit me. I mean, yes, I do. He hit me. Was your last sentence your answer? Huh? Yes, he hit me. At this, don't remember. Please don't remember. It all happened so quickly. Judge Taylor sternly looked sternly at Mayla. Don't you cry, young woman. He began, but Atticus said, let her cry if she wants to, Judge. You've got all the time in the world. Mayla sniffed wrathfully and looked at Atticus. I'll answer you any question you got. Get me up here and mock me, will you? I'll answer any question you got. That's fine, said Atticus. There are only a few more, Miss Mayla. Not to be litigious. You've testified that the defendant hit you, grabbed you around the neck, choked you, and took advantage of you. I want you to be sure you have the right man. Will you identify the man who raped you? I will. That's him, right, young Atticus joined with the defendant. Tom, stand up. Let Miss Mayla have a good look, a long look at you. Is this the man, Miss Mayla? Tom Robinson's powerful shoulder went up his thin shirt. He rose to his feet and stood with his right hand on the back of his chair. He looked oddly off balance, but it was not from the way he was standing. His left arm was fully 12 inches shorter than the right, and hung dead to his side. It ended in a small, shriveled hand, and from as far away as the balcony, I could see that it was no use to him.
Okay, Mike, you stop there, baby. Thank you. Okay, so now Atticus has set out to do, he has done what he set out to do, okay? He was trying to prove to the jury that Mayella is a liar. So then he started asking her questions about, do you have friends, blah, blah, blah. Then he gets to the point and he says, where she told, you remember she had told in the beginning that Tom Robinson had choked her and beat her. So Atticus starts asking questions about how Tom Robinson actually got into the house. So then he gets to the part and says, do you remember him beating you about the face? And he or she hesitates a little while. And Atticus says, you seem sure enough that he choked you. All this time you were fighting back, remember? You also kicked and hollered as loud as you could. Do you remember him beating you about the face? So all of a sudden she got very silent, okay? And she seemed to be trying to get something clear to herself. And then all of a sudden, Atticus, she looks at Mr. Gilmer, because she's looking at this point for Mr. Gilmer to help her, because she's smart enough to realize, even though she's not smart, but she is smart enough to realize that he has caught her in a lie, okay? So Atticus says, it's an easy question, Miss Mayella. So I'll ask you again. Do you remember him beating you about the face? Do you remember him beating you about the face? And all of a sudden she says, no, I don't recollect if he hit me. And then she says, yes, I do. He hit me. So Atticus says, was your last sentence your answer? And then she says, yes, he hit me. I just don't remember. I just don't remember. Okay. And then she pretends to cry. At this point, The judge looks at her and says, "Don't you cry, young woman." But Atticus says, "You know what? Let her cry all she wants to. We have all the time in the world. She could cry until tomorrow." Okay? So then Mayella starts sniffing and she looks at Atticus and she says, "I'll answer any question you got. Get me up here and mock me, will you? I'll answer any question you got." Atticus says, "That's fine by me. I only have a few more." Okay? And he says, "Miss Mayella, not to be tedious, but you also testified that the defendant hit you, grabbed you around the neck, choked you, and took advantage of you." So then he says, "I want you to be sure that you have the right man that took advantage of you." And Mayella says, "That I will. That's right, him right yonder." Okay? So Atticus tells Tom to stand up. He says, "Tom, stand up. I want Miss Mayella to have a good look at you." And then he turns to Miss Mayella and asks her, "Are you sure that is this the man?" Now, pay very close attention to the description of Tom Robinson. It says that he had powerful shoulders that rippled under his thin shirt. But when he rose to his feet and he stood up with his right hand on the back of his chair, he looked oddly off balance. You could tell something was not right, okay? However, it wasn't the way that he was standing. When you looked at his left arm, it was fully 12 inches shorter than his right arm, and it hung dead at his side. That means he has no use in it. It just hangs there and that's it. It ended with a small shriveled hand. And as far away as the balcony, I could see that it was no use to him. Now, what does this tell you here?
That he couldn't rape her because
Speak up a little bit louder.
That he couldn't rape her because all of the bruises was in the right side, and it need to be a left-handed who did this.
Yes, exactly right, Ahmed. And also remember, how could he beat her, choke her, and attack her with only one arm? Everyone understand?
Yes.
So you have to start thinking about this trial. You need to think exactly what's taking place. I want you, when you go back to read, you read how Mr. Gilmer treats the witnesses and the types of questions that he asked Miss Mayella or her father. And then I want you to go back and read how Atticus, what kind of questions he asked them, okay? Atticus is very calm, in control, and I'm sure when Miss Mayella first got up on the witness stand, she thought that was going to be a piece of cake because she thought Atticus was not a man that would ever get her to tell the real truth about what happened, okay? So she's shocked right now, okay? Because Atticus wants to know, how can this man with only one arm that he can use attack a woman like you have just told the courtroom that he attacked you? All right, so Scout starts. Scout, breathe Jim. Scout, look, Reverend, he's crippled. See, no one even realized this before. Reverend Sykes leaned across me and whispered to Jim. He got it caught in a cotton gin. Caught it in Mr. Dolphus Raymond's cotton gin when he was a boy. Liked to bled to death. Tore all the muscles loose from his bones. Atticus said, "Is this the man who raped you?" "It most certainly is." Atticus' next question was one word long. How? Mayella was raging. I don't know how he done it, but he done it. I said it all happened so fast. Now let's consider this calmly, began Atticus. But Mr. Gilmer interrupted with an objection. He was not irrelevant or immaterial, but Atticus was browbeating the witness. Judge Taylor laughed outright. Oh, sit down, Horace. He's doing nothing of the sort. If anything, the witnesses are browbeating Atticus. Judge Taylor was the only person in the courtroom who laughed. Even the babies were still, and I suddenly wondered if they had been smothered at their mother's breast. Now, said Atticus, Miss Mayella, you've testified that the defendant choked and beat you. You didn't say that he sneaked up behind you and knocked you out cold, but you turned around and there he was. See, Atticus has already called her in another lie because she said that Tom snuck up behind her, okay? Atticus was back behind his table and he emphasized his words by tapping his knuckles on it. Do you wish to reconsider any of your testimony? You want me to say something that didn't happen? No, ma'am. I want you to say something that did happen. Tell us once more, please, what happened? I told you what happened. You testified that you turned around and there he was. He choked you then? Yes. Then he released your throat and hit you? I said he did. He blacked your left eye with his right fist? I ducked and it glanced. That's what I did. That's what it did. I ducked and it glanced off. Mayella had finally seen the light. She knew she had been caught red-handed, okay? You're becoming suddenly clear on this point. A while ago, you couldn't remember too well, could you? I said he hit me, all right? He choked you, he hit you, then he raped you. That right? It most certainly is. You're a strong girl. What were you doing all the time? Just standing there? I told you. I hollered and kicked and fought. Atticus reached up and took off his glasses, turned his good right eye to the witness, and rained questions on her. Judge Taylor said, one question at a time, Atticus. Give the witness a chance to answer. All right. Why didn't you run? I tried. Tried to? What kept you from it? He slung me down. That's what he did. He slung me down and got on top of me. You were screaming all this time? I certainly was. Then why didn't the other children hear you? Where were they? At the dump? Where were they? No answer. Why didn't your screams make them come running? The dump's closer than the woods, isn't it? No answer. Or didn't you scream until you saw your father in the window? You didn't think to scream until then, did you? No answer. Did you scream first at your father instead of at Tom Robinson? Was that it? No answer. Who beat you up? Tom Robinson or your father? No answer. What did your father see in the window? The crime of rape or the best defense to it? Why don't you tell the truth, child? Didn't Bob Ewell beat you up? When Atticus turned away from Mayella, he looked like his stomach hurt. But Mayella's face was a mixture of terror and fury. Atticus sat down wearily and polished his glasses with his handkerchief. Suddenly, Mayella became articulate. I got something to say, she said. Atticus raised his head. Do you want to tell us what happened? but she did not hear the compassion in his invitation. I've got something to say, and then I ain't gonna say no more. That nigger yonder took advantage of me, and if you fine, fancy gentlemen don't want to do nothing about it, then you're all yellow, stinking cowards. Stinking cowards, the lot of you. Your fancy airs don't come to nothing. Your mammon and Miss Mayellerin don't come to nothing, Mr. Finch. Then she burst into real tears. Her shoulders shook with angry sobs. She was as good as her word. She answered no more questions, even when Mr. Gilmer tried to get her back on the track. I guess if she hadn't been so poor and ignorant, Judge Taylor would have put her under the jail for the contempt that she had shown everybody in the courtroom. Somehow, Atticus had hit her hard in a way that was not clear to me, but it gave him no pleasure to do so. He sat with his head down, and I never saw anybody glare at anyone with the hatred Mayella showed when she left the stand and walked by Atticus' table. Okay, does everyone understand what has happened here? Is there, if
Yes.
raise your hand if you do not understand. Okay, Jana?
Yes.
Let me explain. Atticus kept on and on and on asking Mayella questions that Atticus knew she was lying about. And because he kept...
Yes, I understand this part, but I don't understand why she left.
You don't understand why what?
Why she left?
Because she's angry, because I'm going to tell you, she is now scared to death. Why? Why is she so afraid?
So she couldn't get caught?
Because what?
So they don't put her in jail because she'll
That's
get
one
caught?
thing. Because she was in contempt of court because she lied so much. But that's not the main thing. What is the main thing, Bhumika, that she's so afraid of?
Of getting arrested for lying.
No, something else.
Her father getting
father?
arrested for raping her?
Bob will.
Laura, what's your answer?
She doesn't have the answers for his questions.
She is terrified of her father. She has just told Atticus that it was her father that did this to her. Do you not know that?
No.
Guys, how could the whole class not get this? No one understood this?
No, miss, I understood that.
I did.
Thank God. Thank God.
I did.
Afaduta, did you understand?
Yes.
Okay. Atticus was not proud of the way that he had to do it. Here, when Scout explains that he got no joy out of what he'd done, it's because, let's go right back up here. You see where she says, when Atticus turned away from Mayella, he looked like his stomach hurt. In other words, Scout is saying here that Atticus looked like he was in pain and sick. Because Mayella is 19 years old. Remember what kind of person Atticus is. Even though he is a lawyer, he doesn't like being hard on people on the witness stand. And he felt really bad that he had to resort to all of those questions to Mayella to finally get her to tell the truth. But it was something that had to be done, okay? You can't blame an innocent man like Tom Robinson of committing a crime that happened like it did to Mayella and expect the innocent man to go to prison and let the guilty man walk scot-free. So Atticus knew that he had to get the truth out of Mayella. And the only way to do this was to continuously badger her with questions. And let me go ahead and tell you, Atticus knew as a lawyer and as a person, a father, he knew who had already done this before he even questioned her. Yes, Hannah, you have a question?
Yes, Miss, I don't understand. Like, why is she covering up for the actual criminal?
Because it's her father. Would you, Hannah, stop and think? Would you?